Once you turn 60, something shifts. It's not sudden like a light switch. It's quiet, almost invisible at first, but deeply profound. You begin to see life through a different lens. Priorities realign. Time becomes more precious than ever. The chase for things that once seemed important now feels hollow. I've sat with hundreds of patients over the years, some just turning 60, some well into their 80s. I've heard their stories. I've seen their regrets. And I've listened to their moments of clarity. What emerges again and again is this realization. There are things you simply don't need anymore. Not because you're giving up, but because you're growing into something far more meaningful. One thing you no longer need after 60 is the need to prove yourself. For decades, life is often about proving something. You strive to be a good parent, a competent professional, a reliable partner. There's always a voice whispering that you're not quite enough, not successful enough, not attractive enough, not relevant enough. But by the time you reach 60, you've lived enough life to understand that self-worth does not come from outside validation. A study published in the Journal of Gerontology revealed that older adults who no longer depended on external validation experienced lower levels of anxiety and a higher sense of life satisfaction. This internal peace is not born from arrogance. It is born from surviving, from loving, from failing, from getting up and doing it all again. The applause of the world fades, and what's left is something quieter and more powerful. A self that no longer begs to be seen, a self that simply is. Another thing you no longer need is clutter. I don't just mean the physical kind, although that's part of it. I mean emotional clutter, mental clutter, social clutter, the countless commitments, expectations, and unspoken obligations that accumulate over the years. Clutter weighs on the body and the spirit. Researchers at Princeton University found that physical clutter in the environment competes for attention, resulting in decreased performance and increased stress. But the emotional clutter is heavier. Guilt you carry for decades, anger that simmers under the surface, friendships that have long expired, but you maintain out of habit or fear. At 60, you have permission to let go, to clean the closet not just of things, but of burdens. Simplifying your surroundings simplifies your mind. A clear space opens the door to peace. A peaceful mind welcomes clarity, and with clarity comes purpose. At 60, purpose matters more than productivity. You also no longer need the fear of missing out, that fear that everyone is doing something more exciting, that you're not keeping up, that life is happening elsewhere. Social media feeds this fear, especially for younger generations. But even older adults are not immune. A report from the University of Pennsylvania found that limiting social media use significantly decreased feelings of FOMO and loneliness. At 60, this fear becomes irrelevant, because what you begin to understand is this: you are not missing out on anything when you are present for your own life. You don't need to attend every event. You don't need to be part of every conversation. You don't need to chase what others define as meaningful. What matters is the life you build in your own home. The quiet conversation with an old friend, the slow walk through your neighborhood, the handwritten note to someone you love. At 60, you begin to choose depth over breadth, real connection over popularity. You begin to miss less by doing less. Perfection is another thing that has no place after 60. For most of life, perfection is an illusion we chase. We want to look a certain way, perform flawlessly, speak without error, maintain a tidy image. But perfection is brittle, it breaks under pressure, and it keeps you from being fully human. I once had a patient in her late 60s who said something I'll never forget. She said, "I spent so much time trying to be perfect that I forgot to be real." Her words stayed with me. Perfection isolates us. Realness connects us. And after 60, connection becomes far more important than control. A meta-analysis from the Journal of Aging and Health confirmed that older adults with strong emotional connections had significantly better cognitive and physical health outcomes. Let that sink in. Your ability to be yourself, to be vulnerable, to admit your imperfections, has a direct impact on your health and your happiness. When you shed the mask of perfection, you breathe easier, you sleep better, you laugh more. You open the door to true belonging. Closely related to that is the need to hold on to every relationship. One of the hardest truths I've learned as a doctor and a human being is that not all relationships are meant to last forever. Some people come into our lives to teach us, some to challenge us, some to walk with us for a while, but not all of them are meant to stay. After 60, it becomes clearer which connections nourish your soul and which ones drain it. You begin to value quality over quantity. You begin to sense when you are the only one reaching out, when the relationship takes more than it gives, when your energy is not respected. Letting go of toxic or one-sided relationships is not cruel. It is necessary. Harvard's study of adult development, one of the longest studies ever conducted, found that strong relationships are the single most important predictor of long-term happiness and health. But they have to be real, mutual, respectful. At 60, you owe it to yourself to protect your energy, to surround yourself with those who see you, hear you, honor you. Life is too short for anything less. And perhaps the most powerful thing you no longer need is regret. Regret is heavy. It steals joy from the present. It whispers lies in the quiet hours. It tells you what could have been, what should have been. But regret is not a life sentence. It is a signal, a teacher, a chance to see clearly. A study published in Emotion found that older adults experience less regret over time, not because their lives were free of mistakes, but because they develop better emotional regulation and the ability to reframe the past. They learn to say, that happened. I learned. I grew. At 60, you have the right to forgive yourself for the things you didn't know, for the choices you made under pressure, for the words left unsaid, the apologies never received, the risks never taken, the years that passed too quickly. You begin to see your life as a whole story, not just the chapters you wish you could rewrite. And you realize this. Regret has no power where acceptance lives. Acceptance is not giving up. It is letting in peace, letting in healing, letting in the truth that you did the best you could with what you had. These 6 things: the need to prove yourself, clutter, the fear of missing out, perfection, toxic relationships, regret. They all have one thing in common. They are weights you do not need to carry anymore. Life after 60 is not about decline. It is about refinement. You become like a tree in autumn, shedding what is no longer needed, not dying, preparing, deepening, rooting, making space for what truly matters. For mornings that begin in quiet gratitude, for conversations that matter, for walks without destination, for time with people who see you without filters, for joy that is not loud but steady. This stage of life is not something to survive. It is something to cherish, a gift, a second chance, a new season that comes not with less, but with more of what is real. I say this not just as a doctor, but as someone who has walked beside thousands of lives, who has seen what matters in the end. And it is never the trophies. It is never the pristine image. It is never the perfectly executed plan. It is the moments, the people, the small, simple, sacred parts of life we so often overlook while chasing things that never filled us. If you are 60 or nearing it, take a moment today. Ask yourself what you no longer need. Be honest, be brave, be gentle. Give yourself permission to live lighter. You have earned it, not by being perfect, but by being present. You are still becoming, still learning, still alive, and that is enough. What truly matters to you now? What truly matters to you now? It is a question that might seem simple on the surface, but when you sit with it, really sit with it, you begin to feel its weight. This question is not for the hurried mind or the distracted heart. It is for those who have lived long enough to know that time is not endless. For those who have seen seasons change, loved ones come and go, hopes rise and fall. At this point in your life, after 60 or more years of living, working, building, losing, and learning, the noise of the world starts to quiet. And in that quiet, this question speaks louder. What truly matters to you now? As a doctor who has spent decades walking beside patients through every stage of life, I can tell you that this question has no universal answer, But it does have a universal direction. It always points inward. It turns you toward your own truth, the truth that may have been hidden under decades of responsibilities, the truth that may have been buried beneath the demands of careers, raising children, supporting others, or surviving. At 60 or 70 or 80, you are given a rare chance. The chance to look clearly at your own life and ask, what do I want to carry forward and what can I lay down? What matters now is no longer about building status. It is about building peace. For many, peace begins with simplicity. A study from the University of California, Berkeley, found that older adults who embraced a simpler lifestyle reported lower stress levels and higher levels of daily satisfaction. Simplicity does not mean poverty, it means clarity. Knowing what you need, knowing what adds value to your days. It might mean fewer commitments and deeper relationships. It might mean a smaller home filled with more love. It might mean less noise and more time to listen to your own thoughts. The world may have pushed you to accumulate for decades, but your heart may now long for less, not more. Because less distraction means more presence, more time, more space for what nourishes you. And what often nourishes us most, especially later in life, is connection. The Harvard study of adult development, which followed participants for over 80 years, found one consistent truth. It is not money, fame, or career success that predicts happiness and longevity. It is close relationships, not the number of friends you have, but the depth and honesty of those relationships. Who checks on you? Who knows your story? Who listens without trying to fix you? Who lets you be yourself? That matters more than ever. As we grow older, our social circles may shrink. That is normal. But what should remain is the warmth of true connection, the kind that reminds you that you are seen, that you are not alone, that your life still matters to someone. Many of my patients tell me that after a certain age, they begin to see time differently. It is no longer something to be spent. It becomes something to be honored. You begin to feel the value of a morning walk, the joy of a grandchild's laughter, the comfort of an old friend's phone call. These things might have seemed small when you were younger. Now they feel like gold. This shift is real. A study published in the Journal of Positive Psychology showed that older adults experience greater emotional well-being in everyday moments. Their brains actually become better at focusing on positive experiences and filtering out the unnecessary noise. This is not just age, it is wisdom. It is your heart protecting what truly matters. And yet, despite this wisdom, many still carry regrets. Moments that cannot be changed, words left unsaid, paths not taken. But what matters now is not the life you did not live. It is the life you still can. The regrets of the past are not meant to define you. They are meant to guide you. A paper from the Journal of Aging Studies found that older adults who were able to reframe past regrets as learning experiences experienced fewer symptoms of depression and reported greater life satisfaction. What this means is that healing is still possible, growth is still possible, even joy is still possible. Not in spite of your age, but because of it. Because now you know how quickly things change. You know the value of a quiet morning. You know the strength it takes to keep going. And that strength is still in you. Spirituality also tends to come forward more clearly later in life. I am not necessarily speaking of religion, though that may be part of it. I am speaking of meaning, of purpose, of feeling connected to something larger than yourself. Studies show that having a sense of purpose is associated with better physical health, lower risk of cognitive decline, and even a longer life. The Journal of the American Medical Association published research confirming that seniors who identified a strong sense of purpose were less likely to suffer from stroke or heart disease. Purpose does not have to be grand. It can be found in caring for a pet, writing letters to loved ones, sharing your story with someone younger, volunteering, gardening, listening. What matters is that it makes you feel alive and useful. And usefulness is not about doing more. It is about being more, being present, being generous, being compassionate, especially with yourself, because you have walked through fire to get here, and maybe no one ever told you, but you deserve kindness from yourself. That matters now, more than ever, to rest without guilt, to grieve without shame, to laugh without fear, to love again. These are not luxuries. These are needs, real needs, and you have every right to claim them, right? So what truly matters to you now? Not what the world says should matter, not what mattered 20 years ago. What matters to you? Is it health? Is it love? Is it forgiveness? Is it creativity? Is it simply being able to wake up and say, this moment, right here, is enough? That is where the answer lives. And it is different for everyone. But I promise you this. When you find what matters, everything else becomes easier to release. This is your time. Not a season of fading, but of refining. Not the end of a story, but a sacred chapter with its own depth and power. So ask yourself gently and honestly, what truly matters to you now? And then begin, one quiet choice at a time, to live by that answer.